Hi everyone. Today we are going to study on these topics: ecological pyramids, production and productivity, biogeochemical cycles such as the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle and phosphorus cycle. First one, ecological pyramid. An ecological pyramid is graphical representation of relationship between different organisms in an ecosystem. Each bar of that make up the pyramid representation a different traffic level and their order, which based on who eat whom represent the flow of energy. Energy move pyramid starting with the pyramid producer or autotrophs such as the plants and algae at very bottom, followed by the primary consumer which feed on the plants, secondary consumer which feed on primary consumers, so on. The height of the bars should all be the same, but width of each bar is based on the quantity of aspect being measured. So, ecological pyramid is nothing but the graphical representation relationship between the different organisms in an ecosystem, where that is represent with the different traffic levels with their orders, and that shows the who eat whom's. This shows the flow of energy, where these primary producers are eaten by the secondary consumers, primary consumers. Then these primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumer which feed on the primary consumers. So and this is depend on the quantity of the aspect being measured, and this ecological pyramid is given in the structure in a diagram is an example of the productivity pyramid, otherwise called as the energy pyramid. The sun has been included in this diagram as the main source of all energy, as well as the decomposers like bacteria and fungi, which acquire nutrient and energy from all traffic level by breaking down dead or decaying organisms. As shown, the nutrients then go back into soil are taken by the plants. This is called as the productivity pyramid or the energy pyramid, where in picture you can see the pyramid structure where sun is the main source for all these things, where you can see here primary producer are eaten by primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumers, then secondary consumers are eaten by the third consumer, then the third consumer are eaten by the predictors. So where primary producer are nothing but the plants are eaten by the grasshoppers or insect, then insect is eaten by the secondary consumer nothing but the birds, then these birds are eaten by the third level consumers nothing but the snake, then the snake is eaten by the predictor, that is the eagle. So after the death of the eagle, that body is decomposed, and that decomposed matter is used by the plants, that is the primary producer. For the growth of the plant, they make use of that composition and prepare their own food. This is how the plants develop, and this is what the energy flow, and this shows the energy pyramid. This is called as the ecological pyramid. Types of ecological pyramids. First one, pyramid numbers, pyramid biomass, pyramid productivity. First one, pyramid numbers. This shows the number of organisms in each traffic level without any consideration for their size. This type of pyramid can conveniently, as counting is often is a simple task, can be done over years to observe the changes in the particular ecosystem. However, some types of organisms are difficult to count. So in pyramid of the numbers, where the number of organisms are counted and made a data, and years together they are observed and they are counted there, and in a particular ecosystem, and for some organisms it is very difficult to count. Next one, pyramid of biomass. This indicates the total mass of organisms at each traffic level. Usually in this type of pyramid is largest at the bottom and gets smaller going up. The biomass of one traffic level is calculated by multiplying the number of individuals in traffic level by average mass of one individuals in particular area. This type of ecological pyramid solves the sum of problems of the pyramid numbers, as it shown more accurate representation of the amount of energy contained in each traffic level, but it has its own limits. For example, the time of years when data are gathered is very important, since different species have different breeding seasons. Also, since it usually impossible to measure the mass of every single organism. So in this second one, pyramid of biomass, where it indicates the total mass of the organisms present in the each traffic level, and this pyramid is going to be larger at the bottom and it is going to be smaller at the topmost level. And in this biomass, where that is calculated by the traffic level with the average mass of the particular area, and this solves the many problems of the pyramids, and it gives the accurate represent of the energy flow, but also it is having the some limits for its calculation. And it is very important to collect the data from years together, and it is impossible to collect all species data, as all species will some different species will be having the different breeding seasons. That's why it's very difficult to collect the some organisms data. Pyramid of productivity. The pyramid of productivity looks at the total amount of energy present at each traffic level, as well as loss of energy between traffic levels. Since the majority of energy present at the each one traffic level will not able to be for next one, is more accurate than other two pyramids. This idea is based on the Lidman's law. Lidman's 10% law, which states that only about 10% of energy in traffic level will go towards creating biomass. In other words, only about 10% of energy will go into making tissue such as the stems, leaves, muscles, etc. in next traffic level. The rest is used in respiration, hunting, and other activities, or are lost in the surrounding as heat. So, in the pyramid of productivity, here the total amount of energy present in the different level is calculated with the and loss of energy in a different traffic level. And this idea is based only Ledman's 10% law, where with the 10% energy in the traffic level is calculated the biomass, and the 10% of energy will be helped for making the stem, leaves, muscles, and etc., and remaining energy is helped in the respiration, hunting, and other activities. So this is what the pyramid of productivity. Functions of ecological pyramid. An ecological pyramid not only shows us the feeding pattern of organisms in different ecosystems, but can also give insight into how inefficient energy transfer is shown. The influence that change in the number at one traffic level can have one traffic levels above and below it. As shown, when data are collected over years, the effects of the changes that takes place in the environment on organisms can be studied by comparing the data. If an ecosystem conditions are found to be worst over years because of the pollution or overhunting by humans, action can be taken by preventing further damage and possibly reverse some of the present damage. So this ecological pyramid, it's not only shows the feeding pattern, but also it shows the how efficient energy is transferred from one traffic level to another traffic level, or one organism to another organisms. And this data is collecting overs together, and This helps for the study of the organisms which are fit for the particular environments. And in ecosystem, it years after years and years, it is going to be very worst because of the pollution by human beings and overhunting by the human beings. And we have to prevent this damages. So these are the few functions of the ecological pyramids. So next one is biogeochemical cycle. So bio means biosphere, geo means geological components, chemical means elements that moves through the cycle. So that is the biogeochemical cycle. Biogeochemical cycle mainly refer to the movement of nutrients and other elements between biotic and abiotic factor is known as the biogeochemical cycle. So here are the three cycles for your syllabus. That one is the carbon cycle, second one is the nitrogen cycle, and third one is the phosphorus cycle. So carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is a process where carbon components are interchanged among the biosphere, geosphere, pedosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere of the earth. So here are the steps in the carbon cycle, where carbon present in atmosphere is observed by the plants for the photosynthesis. These plants are then consumed by the animals, and carbon gets bioaccumulated into their bodies. These animals and plants intellectually die. Upon decomposing, carbon is released back into the atmosphere. Some of carbon that is not released back into the atmosphere, even it become fossil fuels. These fossil fuels then used by man-made activities, which pumps more carbon back into the atmosphere. So these are the steps in the carbon cycle, where you can see in a picture a carbon cycle where plants prepare their own food using sunlight. Then these plants are eaten by the animals. Then you can, after the death of the animals, the body is decomposed and that is converted into fossil fuels. And you can see here there is the industries where burning fuels that also releases the carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide then present in the atmosphere, where again it is utilized by the plants for the preparing the oxygen that takes the carbon dioxide and release the oxygen. This is what the carbon cycle. And for this carbon cycle, here are the important points to remember you. Carbon moves from atmosphere to plants, carbon moves from plants to animals, carbon moves from plant animal to the soil, carbon moves from living things to the atmosphere, carbon moves from fossil fuel to the atmosphere when fuels are burnt, carbon moves from the atmosphere to the oceans. So these are the carbon cycle steps. Next one is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle is a biogeochemical process which transfer the inert oxygen present in atmosphere to the more usable form for living organisms. So this nitrogen present in atmosphere, which is useful for the living organisms in other forms. So nitrogen cycle is the biogeochemical process through which nitrogen is converted into many forms, so passing from atmosphere to the soil to organisms back into atmosphere. It involves several processes such as nitrogen fixation, nitrification, denitrification, decay, and purification. Nitrogen gas exists in both organic and inorganic forms. Organic nitrogen exists into living organisms, and they get passes through the food chain by consumption of other living organisms. So this nitrogen cycle is the including the some processes, that is the nitrogen fixation, nitrification, and denitrification. So this nitrogen is used in atmosphere by different forms, and this nitrogen is used by the some of the living organisms. They consume this micro nitrogen, and this nitrogen is also passed through the food chain for the living organisms. Inorganic forms of nitrogen are found in abundance in atmosphere. This nitrogen is made available to plants by symbiotic bacteria, which can convert inert oxygen into usable forms such as the nitrates and nutrients. Nitrogen undergoes various types of transformation to maintain the balance in the ecosystem. Further, this process extends to various biomass, with marine nitrogen cycle being one of the most complicated biogeochemical cycle. So, in the organic in atmosphere, the nitrogen is very abundant. So, that is used by the living organisms. Then this plant also make use of the nitrogen by the symbiotic bacteria, and this nitrogen is used in many various forms such as the nitrates and nutrients. Then this again used by the plants to the animals, then animals to the again back to the soil. So this is what the nitrogen cycle, where you can see in the diagram where it includes the nitrogen fixation, where this nitrogen fixation takes place with the nitrogen fixation bacteria. Then next it undergoes the nitrification with the help of the nitrifying bacteria. Then it undergoes the denitrification with the help of the denitrification bacteria, and again that denitrification undergoes the nitrogen fixation. This is for the nitrogen cycle. And next one is the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus cycle is a biogeochemical process that involves the movement of phosphorus through the lithosphere, hydrosphere and biosphere, is known as the phosphorus cycle. There are the three steps. First one is a weathering. Since the main source of phosphorus is found in rocks, first step of phosphorus cycle involves the extraction of phosphorus from the rocks by weathering. Weathering events such as rain and other source of erosion results in phosphorus being washed into soil. Weathering means, in last class I told you, that is the breakdown of the rocks and then moves to soil or a water, that is known as the weathering. Here the breakdown of the rocks, phosphorus rocks, takes place. Then with the help of the erosion or heavy rain, that rocks moves to, that pieces of the rocks moves to the water or a soil, that is known as the weathering. Next one, absorption by plants and animals. Once in a soil, plants, fungi and microorganisms are able to absorb phosphorus and grow. Here the plants and animals make use of this phosphorus for their development and growth. In addition, phosphorus can also be washed into local water system. Plants can also directly absorb phosphorus from water and grow. In addition of plants, animals also obtain phosphorus for drinking water and eating plants. So this phosphorus can move to the water system or a soil, and this soil make use of the, these plants make use of the soil, and they grow and develop, so that plant contain the phosphorus. So plants absorb the water, that in water also there is a phosphorus. So that water is animals drink the water, so the animals get the phosphorus. Then the animals or plants undergo the death. So in addition, where the plants obtain the phosphorus by drinking water and eating plants. And next one is the return to environment via decomposition. So here, when plants and animals die, decomposition results into return of the phosphorus back to the environment via water or a soil. Plants and animals in these environments can then use this phosphorus, and step 2 of cycle is repeated. So this third point, return to environment via decomposition, is nothing but when plants and animals die, their body gets decomposition, then returns to the soil or a water, then where the phosphorus is again back to the soil. So plant also containing the phosphorus by taking it from the soil or a water, and animals also having the phosphorus by eating plant and by drinking the water. So after the death of these plants and animals, this phosphorus move to the directly soil, that is decomposition. Then again this cycle is repeated, like absorption by the plants and animals, then again they start growing, again they are grown up, and again the death of the animals and plants takes place, again the phosphorus is back to the soil. So this is what the phosphorus cycle. So you can see in picture there is the rock where the weathering takes place, the breakdown of the rocks takes place, then the movement of the rock pieces come with the contact with water. And here in picture you can see animals, where after the death of the animals they gets decomposed, and then the phosphorus is come contact with soil. Then you can see here fertilizer, where agriculture land they make use of the fertilizers which containing the phosphorus, where the plants make use of this phosphorus and they grow. Then this phosphorus, again this is repeated, so this is called as the cycle. So that is known as the phosphorus cycle. So this is what the today's class. In next class we'll meet with new topic. Thank you.